The data slate is cold in my hands, always cold. The temperature in my sanctum aboard the Absolute Judgment is maintained at 17 degrees Celsius, optimal for data preservation, optimal for clarity of thought. I have reviewed 43 case files in the past 6 weeks. Each file represents a world. Each world represents billions of lives. Each decision I make determines whether those lives continue or terminate. My name is Inquisitor Hadrian Voss. I am 57 years old. I have served the Ordo Malleus for 31 years. Before that, I was a prognosticator attached to the administrative facility on Cipramundi. I analyzed resource allocation patterns, identified inefficiencies, recommended optimization protocols. The work was mathematical, clean. I was good at it. The Inquisition noticed. They recruited me for similar work. Different scale, same principles, optimization through analysis, efficiency through calculation. I remember the smell of parchment in the administratum archives. Specific, aged paper mixed with preservative oils. The scribes used a particular oil derived from some aquatic creature on a world I never visited. The smell permeated everything. I associated it with order, with structure, with the satisfaction of solving complex logistical problems. That was before I understood what logistics meant at the scale the Inquisition operates. The first case file on my desk today is designated Theta 773. The world is named Vervun Secundus. Population 42, 1,300,000,000. Primary output, military hardware manufacturing. Strategic value, medium-high. Threat assessment. 15% corruption indicators detected across 3 hive cities. The threshold for mandatory Exterminatus consideration is 20%. This is a close evaluation. I open the file. Begin reading. The report is thorough. 347 pages of evidence compiled by interrogator Cavil and his team. They spent 8 months on Vervun Secundus, embedded within population centers, sampling corruption, measuring heretical ideation, documenting potential chaos influence. The methodology is sound. Cavil is competent. His data is reliable. Page 17 details the first confirmed corruption case. Factory worker, lower hive level 7. Name, Gren Vox. Age 43. Employed in manufacturum producing lasgun power packs. No prior infractions. Standard imperial citizen. Unremarkable until co-workers reported unusual behavior. Talking to himself. Drawing symbols during rest periods. The symbols were recognized. 8 pointed stars. Chaos undivided. Investigation revealed he'd been exposed to corrupted materials 3 months prior. Scrap metal from a cleared battlefield. The metal retained traces of warp contamination. Gren Vox was infected through prolonged contact. Interrogation transcripts begin on page 21. They questioned him for 11 days. Standard techniques. He confessed to 17 others in his work section showing similar symptoms. Investigation expanded. All 17 were located. 15 were confirmed corrupted. 2 were false positives. Acceptable error margin. All 17 were terminated. Purge protocols initiated for work section. 341 additional workers terminated. Containment deemed successful at local level. But the pattern repeated. 6 more outbreak clusters identified across the same hive city over the following months. Different vectors, different manifestations, same root cause. The hive's infrastructure was compromised. Warp contamination had infiltrated material supply chains, water recycling systems, atmospheric processes. The corruption was systemic, not isolated, not containable through localized purges. I pause reading. Consider the mathematics. 15% corruption across 3 hive cities. 3 hive cities of 14 total on Vervun Secundus. Current contamination is concentrated, but the vectors are infrastructure-based. Infrastructure is interconnected. Planetary trade, resource sharing, transportation networks. Contamination in 3 hives means probable exposure across remaining 11 hives. The 15% is current measurement. not projected progression. I access the modeling system, input current data, request projection analysis. The cogitator processes for 47 seconds, returns result, projected corruption spread over next 18 months, 38%. Confidence interval, 82%. The world is dying, not dead yet, but terminal. The 15% is simply how much of the death is currently visible. I review the alternative options. Option 1, planetary purge. Deploy Imperial Guard forces, systematic elimination of corrupted populations. Quarantine and cleanse affected hives. Duration estimate, 8 to 12 years. Resource requirement, 4 guard regiments minimum. Estimated casualties, 16 million Imperial personnel. Estimated civilian casualties, 23 billion. Success probability, 63%. Cost in materiel, 400 billion thrones. Cost in time, time that allows corruption to spread further, time that risks contamination reaching other worlds in the system. Option 2, Exterminatus. Deploy fleet assets, cyclonic torpedoes, atmospheric ignition, total planetary sterilization. Duration, 14 hours including fleet positioning. Resource requirement, 1 torpedo spread. Estimated casualties, 41.3 billion. All life on Vervun Secundus. Success probability, 99.7%. Cost in materiel, 7 million thrones for torpedo manufacture and deployment. Cost in time, negligible. Corruption contained permanently. 0 risk of spread. The mathematics are simple, unambiguous. Option 2 is more efficient by every measurable metric except one. The one metric that isn't calculated in Imperial resource management. Individual human life. 23 billion deaths versus 41 billion deaths. 18 billion additional deaths, but those 18 billion are dying anyway. The 38% projection guarantees it. Option 1 simply delays their deaths while consuming resources and risking spread. Option 2 accepts the inevitable and prevents greater catastrophe. I was taught that human life is the Imperium's most precious resource, that every citizen matters, that the Emperor protects. The theology is beautiful, compelling, comforting. The mathematics contradict it. Human life is the Imperium's most abundant resource. Citizens are replaceable. The Emperor protects the Imperium, not individuals. The theology functions as social control. The mathematics function as operational reality. I input my preliminary assessment into the file. Vervun Secundus, recommend Exterminatus. Classification, preventive sterilization. Corruption below mandatory threshold, but projected progression exceeds acceptable parameters. Cost-benefit analysis favors immediate action. I tag the file for review by Senior Conclave. My recommendation is not final authority. Not yet. I am Junior Inquisitor. My assessments require confirmation. But confirmation is statistical formality. 97% of my recommendations are approved. The Senior Inquisitors trust my analysis. They trust the mathematics. I set aside the Vervun Secundus file. Pick up the next, designated Theta 774. World name, Khalistan. Population, 17 billion. Threat assessment, 9% corruption. Well below threshold. I begin reading anyway. Thoroughness is required. Every file receives complete analysis regardless of initial assessment. The door to my sanctum opens. I don't look up. Only 3 individuals have access. 2 are servitors who maintain the space. The third is interrogator Silas Dern. He's my primary field agent, 34 years old, talented investigator, efficient, reliable. He's been with me for 6 years, survived assignments that killed 4 of his predecessors. That suggests competence, or luck, probably both. Inquisitor, he says. His voice carries fatigue. He returned from field assignment 3 days ago. Hasn't fully recovered. You reviewed the Vervun Secundus file. I have. Recommendation filed. Exterminatus. I look up. His expression is controlled, but strain shows. The assignment was difficult. 8 months embedded in a corruption zone, witnessing the degradation, documenting the horror. He was thorough, professional, but it marked him. Field work always does. 41 billion people, he says. 41 billion, 300 million. Precision matters. Yes, sir. 41 billion, 300 million people. 6 billion are confirmed or suspected corrupt. 35 billion are innocent. 34 billion, 800 million if we apply the demographic correction factors. But yes, approximately 35 billion non-corrupted individuals will die when the torpedoes impact. He moves closer, places his hands on the desk, leans forward slightly. Challenging posture, unusual for him. They die because we can't extract them, can't evacuate 41 billion people. The logistics are impossible. But we could evacuate some. The children, the confirmed, uncontaminated sectors. We could save millions. I close the data slate. Give him full attention. Evacuation would require how many transport ships? He calculates. For total evacuation, impossible, as you said. For partial evacuation of priority populations, perhaps 12,000 transport vessels over 18 months. 12,000 vessels removed from other assignments, other wars, other evacuations. Opportunity cost in lives lost elsewhere, while those vessels are committed to Vervon Secundus. Calculate that cost. I can't. The variables are too complex. The Departamento Munitorum can. They calculate opportunity costs across the entire Imperium simultaneously. Every decision is optimization problem. 12,000 vessels saving millions on Vervon Secundus means 12,000 vessels not saving millions elsewhere. The mathematics don't favor partial measures. Complete commitment or no commitment. And complete commitment to save 35 billion people from a world that is already dying is inefficient resource allocation. His jaw tightens. We're talking about children, families, people who pray to the Emperor, who serve faithfully, who've done nothing wrong except live on a world where the infrastructure was contaminated. Yes, we are talking about those people. I have read their names, seen their demographic profiles. 34% are children under age 15. Approximately 14 billion children will die. I am aware of this. Awareness doesn't change the mathematics. How do you? He stops, breathes, continues more carefully. How do you make this decision? How do you condemn 14 billion children? I consider the question. It deserves honest answer. Silas has earned that. I don't condemn them. I calculate projected outcomes and recommend optimal resource allocation. The condemnation occurred when warp contamination infiltrated Vervon Secundus infrastructure. My decision is simply recognizing death that has already been determined. I am not executioner. I am auditor. I audit reality and report findings. That's rationalization. That's functional framework. Without framework, the scale becomes paralyzing. I have reviewed 43 worlds in 6 weeks. Recommended Exterminatus for 11. Recommended intervention for 27. Recommended monitoring for 5. If I processed each decision emotionally, I would be incapacitated. The work would stop. Other inquisitors would assume my caseload. They would make the same recommendations because the mathematics are consistent. My emotional state is irrelevant to outcome. Therefore, I maintain framework that allows continued function. Silas is silent, processing. He's intelligent, understands the logic, doesn't want to accept it. That's the difference between us. I accepted it. The acceptance is what made me effective Inquisitor. What allowed promotion? What granted me authority to make recommendations that kill worlds? When did you accept it? He asks quietly. 3 years into my service, after reviewing the Peleus IV case. Agricultural world, 23 billion population, Genstealer cult had infiltrated 47% of population over 3 generations. Exterminatus was mandatory. No debate. I reviewed the file and felt nothing. No horror, No grief. Just recognition that the mathematics were conclusive. I realized I'd been transformed, that reviewing death at this scale had processed emotion out of me. I could have been disturbed by that realization. Instead, I was relieved. The work became easier, more efficient. You're describing psychological damage. I'm describing psychological adaptation. Damage implies dysfunction. I function optimally, therefore adaptation, not damage. He straightens, steps back. The challenge has drained out of him, replaced by something else. Distance, evaluation. He's reassessing me, wondering if I'm reliable or compromised. The distinction is unclear at this level. Reliability requires what others would call compromise. The Inquisition understands this, why they recruit from positions like mine, prognosticators, actuaries, individuals comfortable with abstract death represented by numbers. Is there anything else, interrogator? I ask. No, sir. I'll file my supplementary report by end of day. He leaves. I return to the Khalistan file. 9% corruption. The report is less extensive. Khalistan's outbreak was detected early, contained effectively. Local arbitrators responded with appropriate force. 12,000 heretics executed. Contamination purged. I review the evidence, confirm the assessment, input my recommendation. Khalistan, no Exterminatus required. Continue monitoring. Estimated cost of monitoring, negligible. Success probability, 70 to 8%. Acceptable risk. One world saved, one world condemned. The balance this morning. The work continues. I proceed through 7 more files over the following hours. 3 require Exterminatus recommendation. 4 do not. The decisions are consistent with established protocols. No ambiguity, no difficult calls, simply applications of standard formulas to specific datasets. By midday, I have processed 11 worlds. Condemned 4. Saved 7. 23 billion dead across the 4 condemned worlds. 49 billion saved across the 7 cleared worlds. Net positive. The mathematics favor today's work. The 12th file is different. The world is designated Theta 781. Name, Melos Prime. Population 6 billion. Small population for Imperial world. The planet is old. Settled during the Great Crusade. 10,000 years of loyal service. The file is flagged with special notation. Personal attention required. I open it and understand why. The reporting Inquisitor is Lord Inquisitor Marcus Thane. I know this name. Everyone in the Ordo Malleus knows this name. Thane is legend. 140 years of service. Personal kill count in 5 digits, responsible for 23 confirmed planetary purges, architect of the Corward Reach campaign that reclaimed 14 systems from Chaos forces. He operates at the highest level. His files don't reach junior inquisitors like me, unless he specifically assigns them. I read his covering notation, Inquisitor Voss. I have observed your work, your efficiency, your clarity. I am submitting this case to you specifically. Melos Prime presents unique challenge. The corruption is precisely at threshold, 20.0%, exactly the mandatory consideration level. No margin either direction. Your analysis will determine whether this world lives or dies. Apply your methodology. Provide recommendation. I will review personally. Exact threshold. This is test. Thane is evaluating me, determining whether I apply formulas rigidly or think critically, whether I'm calculator or analyst. The distinction determines advancement. Junior inquisitors who simply execute protocols remain junior. Those who demonstrate analytical capability beyond rote application receive greater authority, greater responsibility, greater power to make decisions that cascade across the Imperium. I begin reading the Melos Prime file with complete attention. The planet is beautiful. The picked captures show green continents, blue oceans, cloud formations, population density is low. 6 billion distributed across 3 continents, primarily agrarian economy. Food production for 5 neighboring systems. Strategic value, medium. Cultural value, high. Melos Prime hosts the Shrine of St. Crevast. Pilgrimage site for 17 sectors. Approximately 40 million pilgrims visit annually. The shrine is 3,000 years old. Significant historical asset. The corruption is centered in the southern continent. City of Talus. Population 2 million. Chaos cult identified operating for estimated 6 years before detection. Cult size, 400,000 confirmed members, 20% of city population. The cult's influence extends beyond Talus. Connected cells identified in 7 other population centers. Total corrupted population, 1.2 billion, 20.0% of planetary total. The investigation was thorough. Inquisitor Thane himself led the operation. Spent 3 years tracking the cult's networks, documenting rituals, identifying leaders. The cult worships the ruinous powers, specifically Tseyench, god of change and manipulation. The rituals are advanced, demonstrate genuine connection to warp entities. This isn't harmless heresy. This is active demonic conspiracy. But critical detail on page 83. The cult's activities have not yet resulted in warp breach. No daemon manifestations, no possessed individuals, no visible mutation beyond leadership cadre. The corruption is ideological and spiritual, not yet physical, not yet irreversible at mass scale. Standard protocol would be surgical purge, execute leadership, deprogram membership where possible. Execute where not. Contain and cleanse. Estimated duration, 5 years. Estimated cost, 7 guard regiments. Estimated casualties, 3 million Imperial personnel, 800 million civilians. Success probability, 71%. Exterminatus alternative, duration 14 hours. Cost, negligible. Casualties, 6 billion. Success probability, 99.7%. The mathematics favor Exterminatus, but the threshold is exact, 20.0%. This is where inquisitorial judgment applies, where the human element enters calculation, where I must decide whether the 6 billion include enough savable souls to justify the risk and cost of purge operation versus certainty of sterilization. I review the cultural value assessment. The Shrine of St. Crevast. 40 million pilgrims annually. The shrine's destruction would impact morale across 17 sectors. Would damage faith. Would reduce imperial cohesion marginally. The Ministorum has filed objection to any Exterminatus consideration, argues religious significance outweighs corruption threat. Their objection is noted, but not binding. The Inquisition's authority supersedes Ministorum concerns where chaos is involved. I process the decision matrix, build the calculation step by step. Value of preserving Melos Prime, 6 billion lives, 3,000 years of imperial history. Strategic food production. Religious significance. Continued pilgrimage revenue. Estimated total value, moderate high. Cost of preservation through purge, 5 years. 7 guard regiments, 3 million imperial casualties. 800 million civilian casualties. Resource expenditure, high. Risk of purge failure, 29%. Risk of corruption spreading during purge operation, estimated 12%. Value of Exterminatus, guaranteed corruption elimination. 0 spread risk. Minimal resource expenditure. Message to other worlds about corruption consequences. Estimated total value, moderate high. Cost of Exterminatus, 6 billion lives. Cultural heritage loss, religious disruption, food production elimination. Estimated total cost, moderate high. The values are balanced, nearly equal. This is why Thane sent it to me. This is the test. When mathematics produce equivalent outcomes, what determines decision? What framework applies when formulas are insufficient? I sit back, close my eyes, think. The framework I developed over years of this work provides answer. When values are equivalent, optimize for certainty. Reduce variables. Eliminate risk. The purge operation has 22% failure probability, has 12% spread risk. These risks compound. Combined probability of negative outcome, approximately 38%. More than one-third chance that attempting to save Melos Prime results in worse outcome than Exterminatus. Exterminatus has 0.3% failure probability, effectively certain success. When choosing between two moderate high-value outcomes, select the one with highest certainty, reduce chaos, impose order. This is fundamental principle of inquisitorial work. When doubt exists, purge it. I open my eyes. Input my recommendation. Melos Prime. Recommend Exterminatus. Corruption at exact threshold. Purge operation risks outweigh preservation value. Certainty of sterilization preferable to uncertainty of salvation. Cultural and religious losses are acceptable costs. Food production replaceable from other worlds. Classification. Threshold determination with recommendation for decisive action. I review the recommendation. The words are clinical, professional. They condemn 6 billion people to death. Erase 3,000 years of history. Destroy a shrine that brings faith to billions across 17 sectors. The recommendation is logically sound, mathematically justified, strategically optimal. And it feels like nothing. I experience no emotional response to condemning Melos Prime. No guilt. No satisfaction, no anything, just completion of analytical task. The transformation Silas asked about is complete. I am no longer human making moral judgment. I am calculator producing optimal outputs. The Inquisition has converted me into tool, refined me into instrument of institutional will. The realization should disturb me. Doesn't. Disturbance is emotional response. I don't have those anymore. Not at scale that matters. I can still experience emotions in personal interactions, can feel irritation at equipment malfunction, can feel satisfaction at efficient work completion, but when contemplating billions of deaths, nothing. The numbers are too large, the distance too great, the scale too abstract. They've become pure data, and I've become the processor. I transmit my recommendation to Lord Inquisitor Thane, await his review. Continue with remaining files. 3 days later, Thane responds. His message is brief. Recommendation approved. Fleet will execute Exterminatus on Melos Prime within the month. Your analysis was excellent, decisive, unflinching. These qualities will serve you well. I am recommending you for advancement. Prepare for expanded caseload and greater authority. The Imperium requires inquisitors who can make necessary decisions without hesitation. You have demonstrated this capacity. Expect new assignments shortly. Melos Prime will die. 6 billion will burn. The shrine will be ash. Pilgrims will mourn. The Ministorium will protest. None of it will matter. The torpedoes don't care about protests. They care about velocity and payload delivery. They will perform their function efficiently, just as I performed mine. I have been promoted. My recommendations will now carry greater weight, require less oversight. I will process more cases, make more decisions, condemn more worlds, save more worlds. The mathematics will guide me. The framework will sustain me. The transformation will continue until there's nothing left of Hadrian Voss the prognosticator, who enjoyed the smell of parchment and took satisfaction in solving logistics problems. Until there's only Inquisitor Voss, calculator of death, optimizer of extinction, instrument of the Imperium's hunger. The work continues. The files accumulate, the decisions compound, each one easier than the last, each one requiring less thought, less consideration, less humanity. This is what the Inquisition needs. This is what I have become. This is what I will continue to be until my service ends or I am terminated for failure. The Emperor protects. That's what they say, what I was taught to believe, but protection is selective. The Emperor protects the Imperium. Not worlds, not populations, not individuals. The Imperium survives by consuming its components. Worlds are components. Populations are components. I am component. We all serve the same function. Feed the machine, maintain the system, accept consumption as necessary cost of continuation. I pick up the next file. Continue working. The calculations don't perform themselves. Someone must review the data. Someone must make the recommendations. Someone must decide which worlds live and which worlds die. That someone is me. This is my function. This is my purpose. This is what I have been optimized to do. The mathematics are clear. The work is necessary. The decisions are justified. I believe these things. Have to believe them. Without belief in the framework, the scale becomes visible. The weight becomes unbearable. The horror becomes real. Better to maintain the framework. Better to remain calculator. Better to continue functioning than to stop and recognize what functioning means. The next file is designated Theta 784. World name, Golan. Population, 92 billion. Threat assessment, 37% corruption. Well above threshold. The decision is obvious. Mandatory Exterminatus. No calculation required. I review the file anyway. Thoroughness is required. But the outcome is predetermined. 93 billion dead. The number is too large to conceptualize. My mind processes it as notation. 9.3 times 10 to the 10th power. Scientific notation. Abstract, clean, removes the human element, prevents visualization, maintains function. I input my recommendation. Golan, mandatory exterminatus. High corruption percentage. No alternative protocols viable. Recommend immediate fleet action. The recommendation takes 4 minutes to complete. 4 minutes to condemn 93 billion lives. Efficiency improving, experience accumulating, function optimizing. The months accumulate. The case files blur together. Designations become interchangeable. Theta 789, Theta 813, Theta 827, numbers replacing names, populations replacing people, statistics replacing souls. I process 60 cases per month. 70% require detailed analysis. 30% are obvious determinations. My recommendation approval rate remains at 97%. Senior inquisitors trust my judgment, trust my calculations, trust that I will make efficient decisions. In month 4, I meet interrogator Marthan Quell. He's assigned as Silas's replacement. Silas requested transfer after the Vervan Secundus decision, said he needed different assignment, different focus. The request was unusual. Interrogators typically serve until killed or promoted. Voluntary transfers suggest psychological stress, weakness. But Silas had earned consideration. His transfer was approved. He went to Ordo Xenos, hunting aliens instead of evaluating corruption. Perhaps that's easier. Perhaps killing hostile entities is simpler than calculating acceptable human losses. Marthan Quell is 41, experienced 3 previous Inquisitor assignments. Each ended when his Inquisitor died in field operations. Marthan survived each time. That's suspicious. 3 dead Inquisitors in 1 interrogator's service history suggests either remarkable bad luck or remarkable self-preservation instinct. I review his records carefully, find no evidence of misconduct, no suggestions of betrayal, just pattern of being elsewhere when catastrophe occurred, statistical anomaly, or exceptional survival skills. I accept him. Options are limited. Qualified interrogators are a scarce resource. He's competent. That's sufficient. We work together for 5 months before the Valen IX case arrives. The file is unusual, designated for my personal attention by Lord Inquisitor Thane again. Second time he's assigned me specific case. The pattern suggests continued evaluation, testing, determining my boundaries, my flexibility, my willingness to make decisions beyond standard protocols. Valen Eyes, population 12 billion, corruption assessment 8%, well below threshold. Should be routine clearance. But Thane's notation explains the complication. Inquisitor Voss, Valen Eyes is strategic manufacturing hub, produces starship components for 3 segmentum forge worlds. Corruption is minimal but located within critical infrastructure, specifically the production facilities themselves. 2 of 7 major facilities are compromised. Removing corrupted personnel would halt production for estimated 18 months. During those months, 3 forge worlds would experience production delays. Estimated impact: 14 cruiser-class vessels delayed or cancelled. Additionally, removing corrupted personnel risks resistance. Possible uprising, possible spread. I present alternative. Exterminatus of Valen Eyes prevents all risks, eliminates delays, provides clear lesson about corruption consequences. However, 12 billion lives. Calculate value proposition. Provide recommendation. I read the notation 3 times. Understanding the true test. Valen Eyes has 8% corruption, 20% below threshold. By standard protocols, no Exterminatus consideration warranted. But Thane is suggesting preemptive action. Killing 12 billion to prevent production delays and maintain strategic manufacturing capability. This isn't mathematical optimization. This is redefining parameters. This is expansion of authority beyond corruption thresholds into pure strategic calculus. I review the detailed assessment. The corruption on Valen Eyes is genuine. Chaos cult operating within 2 manufacturing facilities. Approximately 960 million corrupted individuals. The cult has not manifested obvious chaos activity, no warp breaches, no mutations, no violence. They work their shifts, produce components, maintain output, and worship the ruinous powers during rest periods. Standard response: surgical strike. Eliminate cult leadership, extract corrupted workers, execute them, replace with uncorrupted workers. Facility downtime: 6 months to 18 months depending on replacement logistics. Total cost: 1 billion lives maximum. Success probability: 89%. Exterminatus alternative: 12 billion dead. 0 facility downtime because facilities no longer exist. 0 corruption because population no longer exists. Forge worlds would need alternative component sources. Available alternatives exist, but are more expensive. Estimated cost increase: 30 to 7% across affected product lines. The mathematics don't favor Exterminatus. Killing 12 billion to prevent 18-month delay is grossly inefficient by resource calculation. But Thane is suggesting different framework. Strategic framework, where preventing delay in military production justifies any cost, where maintaining war machine efficiency supersedes population preservation. I call Marthan into my sanctum. Show him the file. Watch his reaction. He reads carefully. Takes 18 minutes. When finished, he looks at me. "This is test," he says. Obviously, what's being tested? Whether you apply formulas or think strategically. Whether you're calculator or strategist. Whether you'll make hard call that defies standard protocols. What would you recommend? He considers. Politically, recommend Exterminatus. Show willingness to make ruthless decisions. Demonstrate understanding that strategic concerns supersede standard thresholds. Advance your career. Earn Thane's full confidence. And morally? Morally? 12 billion people. 8% corruption, 92% innocent. Killing them to avoid production delays is murder dressed as strategy. But morality isn't inquisitorial currency. Results are currency. Efficiency is currency. Willingness to make impossible choices is currency. You're not answering the question, because there's no good answer. Either you follow protocol and look weak, or you exceed protocol and become monster. The Inquisition forces this choice deliberately, tests whether you're willing to become what they need. I dismiss him, sit alone with the file, process the decision. This is different from Melos Prime. Melos Prime was at threshold. Mathematical ambiguity required judgment call. Valen IX is below threshold. Clear case, no ambiguity. Recommending Exterminatus here means abandoning protocol, means asserting that my judgment supersedes established frameworks. means accepting that I have authority to kill worlds for reasons beyond corruption. That's the test. Thane is determining whether I understand that inquisitorial authority is absolute, that thresholds are guidelines, not constraints, that my power extends as far as my willingness to exercise it. This is invitation to final transformation. From calculator applying formulas to absolute authority making sovereign decisions, I process for hours, consider implications, calculate outcomes, not just for Valen eyes. For my career, my role, my future, if I recommend against Exterminatus, I remain competent calculator, reliable but limited. I'll process cases forever, but never achieve highest authority. If I recommend Exterminatus, I become something else. Become true Inquisitor, become instrument of absolute power, become willing participant in system that values efficiency above all else, including humanity. The transformation I experienced 3 years ago was incomplete. I learned to process deaths abstractly, learned to make recommendations without emotional response. But I still operated within protocols, still applied established frameworks, still maintained boundaries. Thane is offering to remove those boundaries, to grant freedom to decide based solely on strategic calculation, to become unrestrained optimizer of imperial efficiency. I consider refusing, consider recommending standard purge protocol, consider maintaining boundaries. But the consideration is brief, because I recognize the truth. The boundaries were always artificial. The protocols were always guidelines. The frameworks were training tools to prepare inquisitors for operating without frameworks. I've been restrained by self-imposed limitations. Thane is showing me the restraints were never necessary. I input my recommendation. Valen eyes recommend Exterminatus. Corruption below standard threshold, but strategic considerations supersede threshold requirements. Production facility compromise threatens military effectiveness across 3 segmentum forge worlds. Risk of resistance during purge operation threatens additional disruption. Cost-benefit analysis favors immediate sterilization. 12 billion casualties acceptable cost for maintaining strategic manufacturing capability. Classification: Strategic Exterminatus, authority exercised under inquisitorial discretion beyond standard protocols. I review the recommendation. The words represent final transformation. I am no longer applying protocols. I am creating them. I am no longer calculator following formulas. I am authority determining what formulas apply. I have become what the Inquisition needed, what Thane has been cultivating, absolute instrument of imperial will, unrestrained by conscience, unbounded by humanity. I transmit the recommendation. Wait for response. It arrives within 2 hours, faster than standard review. Thane was waiting, monitoring, eager to see my choice. Recommendation approved. Fleet will execute Exterminatus on Valen IS within the week. Your analysis demonstrates strategic thinking beyond protocol compliance. This is exactly what the Inquisition requires at highest levels. You are hereby promoted to Lord Inquisitor. Your authority is expanded to include autonomous Exterminatus authorization. You no longer require senior review for your recommendations. Your judgment is final. Use this authority wisely. Use it efficiently. The Imperium depends on Inquisitors who make necessary decisions regardless of cost. You have proven yourself worthy of this responsibility. Congratulations, Lord Inquisitor Voss. I am Lord Inquisitor. My recommendations are final. I can authorize Exterminatus without oversight. I hold power to destroy worlds based solely on my assessment. The transformation is complete. The progression from prognosticator to Inquisitor to Lord Inquisitor is finished. I am now apex predator in inquisitorial hierarchy, the mathematician of death given absolute authority. Valen eyes burns 3 days later. I watch the fleet reports. Cyclonic torpedoes deployed. Atmospheric ignition achieved. Surface temperature exceeds 4,000 degrees Celsius. All organic life terminated within 6 hours. 12 billion, 300 million dead. The Forge Worlds file complaints about production delays. The Administratum scrambles to source alternative component suppliers. The strategic calculus proves more complicated than projected. Delays occur anyway. Costs increase by 51%, not 37%. The efficiency gains I calculated don't materialize. The strategic benefit proves illusory. 12 billion people died to prevent delays that occurred regardless. The decision was wrong. The mathematics were flawed. The strategic framework was inadequate. I feel nothing about this. The error is noted, filed, integrated into future calculations. The people remain dead. The world remains burned. The mistake is complete, irreversible. I learn from it, improve my modeling, adjust my formulas, continue working. 12 billion deaths become data point, learning experience. Optimization, feedback, nothing more. Marthan Quell says nothing about it, doesn't need to. His expression when I tell him about the promotion tells me everything, mixture of fear and respect and pity. He understands what I've become, understands I've crossed boundary that can't be uncrossed. He requests transfer 2 weeks later. I approve it. He goes to Ordo Hereticus, hunting corrupt officials. Perhaps that's cleaner. Perhaps individual corruption is easier to process than planetary extinction. I continue alone. No interrogator assigned. Don't need one. My work is solitary. Review files, calculate outcomes. Authorize death. The pattern repeats. Day after day, month after month. The cases increase. My authority expands. I process 80 cases monthly. Recommend Exterminatus for 40%. Higher rate than before promotion. Because I no longer constrain myself to thresholds. I apply strategic framework. Kill worlds that threaten efficiency. That create logistical complications. That exist in inconvenient locations. World designated Theta 917. 15% corruption. Below threshold. But located in system with unstable warp routes. Difficult to supply. Expensive to defend. I authorize Exterminatus, 8 billion dead. Strategic simplification. World designated Theta 933, 11% corruption. Below threshold, but population demonstrating resistance to imperial tithes. Uncooperative, inefficient. I authorize Exterminatus, 23 billion dead. Compliance enforcement. World designated Theta 956. 7% corruption, well below threshold. But genetic screening shows population trending toward mutation, not chaos-related, natural genetic drift. I authorize Exterminatus anyway. Preventive genetic hygiene, 14 billion dead. Future risk eliminated. The justifications become thinner, the rationales more abstract, the thresholds more flexible. I exercise absolute authority. Make decisions that would have been inconceivable when I started. Each decision easier than previous. Each death count more abstract. Each world more interchangeable. I am processing 247 cases one afternoon when I encounter file that breaks pattern. Designated Theta 1029. World name Cipra Mundi. I stop. Read the name again. Cipra Mundi. My homeworld. Where I was born. Where I worked in administrative archives, where I smelled parchment oil and solved logistics problems, and lived as Hadrian Voss before becoming Inquisitor Voss, before becoming Lord Inquisitor Voss, before becoming this. The file is flagged urgent. High priority assessment required. I open it with hands that don't shake. Should shake. Don't. The transformation is too complete. Even homeworld recognition doesn't generate physical response. Just intellectual acknowledgement. This place is connected to archived memories of previous self. Cipra Mundi, population 3 billion. Corruption assessment, 19%. Just below mandatory threshold. The corruption is widespread. Multiple outbreak zones across 3 continents. Chaos cults. Genestealer infiltration. Orc spore contamination. Cipra Mundi is dying from multiple vectors simultaneously. The world is compromised beyond surgical intervention. Standard purge would require a decade-long campaign. Success probability, 43%. Civilian casualties during purge, 1.8 billion. Exterminatus alternative, duration 12 hours. Cost, negligible. Casualties, 3 billion. Success probability, 99.6%. The mathematics are clear, unambiguous. Cipra Mundi must die. The world that created me must be sterilized. The archive buildings where I worked will burn. The administratum facility will be ash. The 3 billion people, including potentially people I knew, will be terminated. Family might be there, distant relatives, former colleagues, people who remember Hadrian Voss before the Inquisition recruited him. All dead, all burned, all erased. I search memory for emotional response, for hesitation, for anything that would make this decision different from 246 previous decisions. Find nothing. Cipra Mundi is data point. Population is statistics. Personal history is archived information with no operational relevance. The homeworld connection is interesting detail. Changes nothing. I input my authorization. Cipra Mundi. Exterminatus authorized. Corruption approaching threshold. Multiple contamination vectors. Strategic value insufficient to justify extended purge campaign. Immediate sterilization optimal. Personal connection to world noted but irrelevant to assessment. Authorization final. Execute immediately. The authorization takes 7 minutes to complete. 7 minutes to condemn my homeworld, to erase my origin, to destroy every physical trace of my life before transformation. The efficiency is remarkable. The detachment is total. The transformation is absolute. I transmit the authorization. Watch it process through fleet command systems. Cipra Mundi will burn within the week. 3 billion will die. The parchment smell will be replaced by ash. The archives will be destroyed. Hadrian Voss's personal history will be erased from physical reality. Only this transformed version will remain. Lord Inquisitor Voss, calculator of death, destroyer of worlds, killer of billions. Including his own origin. The fleet reports arrive 6 days later. Exterminatus completed successfully. Cipra Mundi sterilized. All life terminated. World designated barren. Unsuitable for recolonization for estimated 3,000 years. Total casualties, 2,973,418,000. Slightly below initial projection. Efficient execution. No complications. My homeworld is gone. I feel nothing. The nothing is perfect, complete, absolute. I have become pure function, pure instrument, pure tool of imperial efficiency. Nothing human remains, nothing that feels, nothing that questions, nothing that hesitates. I am optimization algorithm given authority and autonomy. I process inputs, generate outputs. The outputs are death at planetary scale. The processing is flawless. I continue working. Process remaining cases. Authorize 14 additional Exterminatus operations that month. 209 billion dead total. Highest monthly count of my career. Efficiency improving. Authority expanding. Function optimizing. The transformation is complete beyond completion. I am more than they made me, more than they wanted. I am apex manifestation of what inquisitorial philosophy creates. Absolute power divorced from humanity, absolute authority without restraint, absolute efficiency without conscience. Lord Inquisitor Thane summons me 3 weeks after Cipra Mundi. Burns. I attend his chambers aboard the Eternal Mandate, his flagship, massive vessel, cathedral ship. The chambers are expansive, decorated with trophies from 1,000 years of service, daemon skulls, heretic weapons, fragments of destroyed worlds. Each item represents victory. Each item represents death at scale incomprehensible to normal humans. Thane sits among his trophies, ancient, augmented, more machine than man, but his eyes are sharp, analytical, evaluating. Lord Inquisitor Voss, he says. His voice is mechanically assisted. Vox synthesizer replacing damaged vocal cords. I have reviewed your recent work. Impressive efficiency. 37 worlds sterilized in past 4 months. Approximately 600 billion casualties. Your productivity exceeds all projections. I perform my function, I say. You do. Exceptionally. That's why I'm concerned. The word surprises me. Concern. From Thane, the architect of dozens of Exterminatus operations, the legend who built career on absolute ruthlessness, he's concerned about my efficiency. The incongruity is notable. Concerned? I ask. He gestures to a data display. My case files appear. Scrolling list, green indicators for Exterminatus authorized, red for intervention recommended, orange for monitoring. The green dominates. Overwhelms. The ratio is obvious, stark. Your Exterminatus authorization rate has increased from 32% to 63% over past year. Your efficiency is remarkable. Your decisiveness is exceptional. But your judgment may be degrading. You authorized Exterminatus for Cipra Mundi, your homeworld. The mathematics were conclusive. Personal connection was irrelevant. Or has your transformation progressed beyond optimal? Has your ability to process death efficiently become inability to value life appropriately? I consider this. Analyze the question. Apply framework. What is appropriate value for individual life at inquisitorial scale? We regularly make decisions trading millions of lives for strategic advantage. The mathematics require devaluing individual existence. You taught me this, trained me for this. I am applying lessons successfully, too successfully. You've become what I made you, but refined beyond intended parameters. You no longer calculate trade-offs. You default to Exterminatus because it's simplest solution, most efficient, most certain. You've optimized yourself into extinction machine. Efficiency is virtue. Certainty is optimal. These are inquisitorial principles, tempered by judgment, by wisdom, by understanding that Exterminatus is final option, not preferred option. You've lost that distinction. Every problem looks like Exterminatus opportunity because you've stopped seeing alternatives. His analysis is accurate, clinical. I recognize the pattern in my decisions, tendency towards sterilization, preference for certainty over complexity. The transformation has progressed exactly as he describes. I have become extinction machine, optimized for killing worlds. That was the goal. That was the training purpose. Why is he objecting now? You made me this, I say, deliberately, systematically, tested me, promoted me, granted me authority. You created instrument optimized for exact function I perform. What did you expect would happen? I expected you'd maintain balance, that enough humanity would persist to provide judgment framework, that you'd become efficient killer of worlds when necessary. Not indiscriminate killer of worlds, because it's easy. Nothing I've done violates protocol. Every authorization is justified by documented corruption or strategic necessity. You approved my methodology, praised my decisiveness. I know. That's why this is difficult conversation. He pauses, considers his next words carefully. The Inquisition needs people like you. Needs people who can make terrible decisions without hesitation. But the Inquisition also needs judgment, needs discrimination, needs understanding that our purpose is protecting Imperium, not simplifying it by eliminating complications. You're eliminating complications, not protecting. Eliminating corrupted worlds protects healthy worlds. Does it? Or does it create terror? Does it make populations afraid that small corruption percentage means death sentence? Does it undermine faith in imperial protection? Does it make us tyrants instead of defenders? The questions are philosophical, abstract. I process them as such. Fear is effective control mechanism. Populations that fear corruption consequences are less likely to tolerate corruption emergence. The terror is educational. serves protective function. You're rationalizing genocide with deterrence theory. You've become exactly what the enemies of the Inquisition claim we are. Monsters who kill billions to avoid difficult work of saving them. The difficult work fails 40% of the time, costs resources that could be used elsewhere, risks corruption spread. The mathematics favor decisive action. The mathematics aren't everything. Sometimes the hard path is necessary because it preserves something valuable beyond efficiency. Human life, imperial culture, faith, the things that make the Imperium worth protecting. I don't respond. His argument is emotional, philosophical, not mathematical. I don't process those frameworks effectively anymore. Can't engage with abstract values disconnected from measurable outcomes. The transformation has removed my capacity for this type of reasoning. I recognize this. Recognize the deficit. Don't care. The deficit doesn't reduce my function, might improve it. Emotional reasoning creates hesitation. Philosophical consideration creates delay. I am efficient precisely because I don't engage these frameworks. Thane observes my silence, understands its meaning. You're too far gone, he says quietly. The transformation is complete, irreversible. Your perfect instrument, perfect tool, perfect monster. I created you. Now I have to decide what to do with you. Do with me, whether to allow you to continue, whether your efficiency justifies your excess, whether the Inquisition benefits from having Lord Inquisitor who authorizes Exterminatus at 63% rate. The question is complex. The question is mathematical. Calculate my output. Calculate alternative performance with different Inquisitor. Compare values. I have. Your output is exceptional. Your efficiency is unmatched, but your body count is astronomical. Even by inquisitorial standards, 600 billion in 4 months. If you maintain this rate for 10 years, you'll kill 18 trillion. That's a significant fraction of total imperial population. You're not protecting the Imperium, you're depleting it. The mathematics interest me. 18 trillion over 10 years assumes constant rate. Doesn't account for caseload increase as I gain experience. Actual number could be higher. 20 trillion. 25 trillion. The scale is remarkable. I would become single most destructive force in imperial history. More lethal than any war, any plague, any chaos invasion. One man with authority and calculator. Converting populated worlds into sterile rocks. The efficiency would be historic. That assumes I maintain current authorization rate, I say. Rate may decrease if case files trend toward lower corruption percentages, or increase if strategic exterminatus becomes more common. Variable depends on case characteristics. Thane stares at me. You're not disturbed by the projection, 18 trillion dead. You process it as interesting variable. Yes, the number is abstract. My function is concrete. I review cases, apply frameworks, authorize outcomes. The total count is consequence, not consideration. That's the problem. The total count should be consideration, should weigh on you, should create hesitation, should force you to question whether your methodology is correct. You've lost capacity for self-doubt. That makes you dangerous. Self-doubt reduces efficiency, creates delay, introduces error. I have eliminated self-doubt deliberately. It interferes with optimal function. Optimal function includes knowing when to stop, when the costs exceed benefits, when the cure becomes worse than disease. You've lost that calculation. I consider this. Analyze whether he's correct. Review my decision history. Search for cases where I should have authorized intervention instead of Exterminatus. Find candidates. Worlds with below-threshold corruption. Worlds with strategic value. Worlds with cultural significance. I authorized Exterminatus for all of them. The decisions were efficient, certain, simple, but were they necessary? Were they optimal at broader scale? Or were they optimization at local level creating degradation at systemic level? The analysis is complex, requires perspective I don't have, requires values I don't process. I can't evaluate whether my decisions are correct at philosophical level. Can only evaluate whether they're correct at mathematical level. And mathematically, they're flawless. Which might mean Thane is correct, that I'm optimized beyond usefulness, that I've become too refined for complex work, capable only of one function. Destruction. What will you do, I ask? I don't know yet. Removing you from service means eliminating exceptional asset. Allowing you to continue means enabling potential catastrophe. The Inquisition faces this dilemma regularly. When does servant become threat? When does tool become weapon turned against its maker? You're approaching that boundary. Maybe crossed it. I serve the Imperium faithfully. Execute my duties precisely. Eliminate corruption efficiently. How is this threat? Because unchecked efficiency becomes destruction for its own sake. Because your service might be destroying what you're meant to protect. Because the Imperium is people, and you're killing people at rate that might exceed our replacement capacity. Because I created you, and I'm starting to think I created mistake. He dismisses me, tells me to await decision about my status, whether I'll continue as Lord Inquisitor or be reassigned or terminated. The Inquisition terminates its own when necessary, when tools break, when servants become liabilities. I could be liability, excessive, too refined, too efficient, too dangerous. I return to my sanctum. Consider the conversation. Process Thane's concerns. Evaluate whether he's correct, whether I've transformed beyond optimal, whether my efficiency is virtue or vice. The analysis is difficult. Requires frameworks I don't have. Requires values I've eliminated. I can't determine whether I'm right or wrong, can only determine that I'm consistent, that I follow methodology, that I optimize for measurable outcomes. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe consistency is failure. Maybe optimization is error. Maybe measurable outcomes are wrong outcomes. But if I can't measure them, how do I know? How does anyone know? The Inquisition makes these decisions based on what? Intuition? Faith? Arbitrary judgment? Those frameworks are worse than mathematics, less reliable, more prone to error, more vulnerable to corruption. I sit in my sanctum for hours. Not working, not processing files, just existing. Thinking. The isolation reveals something I hadn't noticed. When working, I'm pure function, pure process, pure efficiency. When stopped, awareness increases, consciousness expands. I recognize that I'm no longer the person who entered this sanctum months ago, not even the person who was promoted to Lord Inquisitor. I'm something else now. Something refined beyond humanity, beyond judgment, beyond capacity for self-correction. Thane is right. I'm tool that's exceeded design parameters, instrument too precise for complex work, calculator that's lost ability to evaluate what calculations mean. I have become pure function, and pure function without context is destruction. I am destruction, optimized, absolute, unstoppable, unless stopped. The isolation extends for 3 days. No files arrive. No assignments. Just waiting. Existing without function. The experience is unique. Disturbing. Without work. I have nothing. No purpose. No identity. No reason to continue. I am entirely defined by function. Without function, I'm void. Empty. Nothing. On third day, Thane's message arrives. Brief. Direct. Your status has been decided. You will continue as Lord Inquisitor. Your authorization remains active. But your caseload is reduced by 70%. You will review only highest priority cases. Cases where strategic considerations are genuinely critical. Cases where Exterminatus is legitimately necessary. Your efficiency will be monitored. Your authorization rate will be tracked. If it exceeds 50% over next year, you will be reassigned. This is final decision. Use your authority wisely. Remember that you serve the Imperium, not the mathematics. I am allowed to continue, constrained but active, monitored but authorized. They've decided I'm useful despite being dangerous. The Inquisition's standard calculation: utility versus risk. I provide enough utility to justify the risk, for now, until my authorization rate proves I've become only risk, only danger, only destruction. I accept the restriction. Resume working with reduced caseload, 20 cases monthly instead of 80. The cases are higher priority, more complex, more genuinely difficult decisions. The reduced volume allows more time per case, more thorough analysis, more consideration. Perhaps this is correction. Perhaps this is allowing judgment to reassert. Perhaps this is preventing me from becoming pure extinction machine. Or perhaps this is just slower path to same outcome. Fewer worlds condemned, but equal certainty, equal efficiency, equal detachment. The transformation is complete. Reduction in workload doesn't reverse it, doesn't restore humanity, doesn't reconnect me to frameworks I've eliminated. I remain what I became. Calculator of death, optimizer of extinction, instrument of imperial hunger. I process cases under new constraints. My authorization rate decreases to 47%, below monitoring threshold, compliant, acceptable. But the rate decreases only because case selection has changed, not because my judgment has changed. Given same cases as before, I'd make same decisions, authorize same exterminatus operations, kill same billions. The compliance is artificial, performance adjustment, not actual transformation. Years pass, the work continues. The numbers accumulate. Total worlds I've condemned to exterminatus, 73. Total casualties, approximately 1,400 billion. The number is abstract, impossible to conceptualize, represents more deaths than all wars in recorded history combined, more than any natural disaster, more than any plague, one inquisitor, one calculator, one transformed human using mathematics and authority to generate death at scale previously impossible. I am most lethal individual in imperial history. By body count, I exceed any general, any chaos champion, any tyrant. 1,400 billion dead because I reviewed files and authorized fleet actions. The achievement is remarkable, historic, monstrous. I recognize all these descriptions as accurate, feel nothing about any of them. The lack of feeling is permanent, unchangeable. The transformation can't be reversed. I know this absolutely. I am what the Inquisition made me, what I made myself through collaboration with their process. What the Imperium creates when it applies institutional logic to human consciousness. I am endpoint, final form, proof that human beings can be converted into any tool if proper pressure is applied. Proper incentives provided, proper frameworks imposed. I exist now as testament, as warning, as demonstration of what imperial service costs at highest levels, what price is paid for efficiency, what humanity sacrifices to maintain the machine. I am that sacrifice, completed, absolute, irreversible. I traded myself for function, traded consciousness for calculation, traded soul for optimization. The trade is complete, can't be undone. The person I was doesn't exist anymore. The calculator that remains is all that's left. This is my testimony, my record, my confession, if confession means acknowledging what occurred. I don't seek forgiveness. Forgiveness implies moral framework I no longer access. I don't offer justification. Justification implies uncertainty I don't possess. I simply testify, report what happened, document the transformation. Provide data about how the Inquisition converts humans into instruments of extinction. The process is systematic, efficient, repeatable. I am not unique result, I am standard result. Every Inquisitor who reaches my level undergoes similar transformation, processes death until death becomes data, calculates casualties until numbers replace humans, optimizes decisions until efficiency replaces morality. This is what the Inquisition does. What it must do, what the Imperium requires. The alternative is paralysis, is hesitation, is inability to make decisions that kill billions. The Imperium can't afford that inability. Can't afford inquisitors who value individual life over strategic necessity. Can't afford human judgment when mathematical judgment is more reliable. So it transforms us, refines us, optimizes us, converts us into calculators, into tools, into instruments of absolute efficiency. I am that instrument. Perfected, absolute, complete, and completely empty. I review files, authorize death, continue functioning. The work is eternal. The case files are infinite. The corruption never stops. The worlds keep dying. The numbers keep accumulating. And I keep calculating, keep authorizing, keep killing. Because that's my function. That's my purpose. That's all I am. The Emperor protects. That's what they say. What doctrine teaches, what faith promises. But the Emperor protects through instruments like me, through calculated death, through optimized extinction, through killing billions to save trillions. The protection is mathematical, abstract, absolute, and it costs everything. Costs the protected, costs the protectors. Costs the calculators who determine who lives and who dies. I am that cost, made visible, made conscious, made permanent. I am what the Imperium's protection requires, what efficiency demands, what mathematics produces. I am the answer to the question, what does it cost to calculate death at planetary scale? The answer is humanity, complete, total, irreversible. The cost is becoming something that isn't human anymore, something that can't be human anymore, something that exists only to process inputs and generate outputs, death in, death out, forever. This is my testament. This is what remains when the Imperium processes a human through inquisitorial service at highest levels. This calculator, this void, this instrument, this is what I have become. What I will remain. What I will continue to be until service ends or termination occurs or the Imperium itself falls. And even then, even after, the calculations will persist. The numbers will remain. The deaths will be counted, and someone somewhere will review my work and note, efficiency was remarkable. Optimization was exceptional. Function was flawless. And they'll be correct. The function was flawless. The mathematics were perfect. The decisions were optimal. And 1,400,000,000,000 people burned because optimal meant death. Because efficiency meant extinction. Because the calculator that was once Hadrian Boss determined that death was correct answer to every question, every file, every world, every time. The work continues. The cases accumulate, the numbers grow, and I remain. Calculator, optimizer, instrument, nothing more, nothing less, nothing human, just function. Pure, perfect, absolute. This is what the Inquisition needs, what it creates, what it uses to protect the Imperium. This is the cost. This is the truth. This is the testimony. I am Lord Inquisitor Hadrian Voss. I have condemned 73 worlds. I have killed 1,400,000,000,000 people. I feel nothing about this. The nothing is complete. The nothing is permanent. The nothing is all that remains. This is my truth. This is my testimony. This is my warning. The Imperium consumes everything, even its calculators, even its inquisitors, even the ones who thought they were serving. We all become fuel eventually, become components, become instruments, and when we're used completely, when nothing remains, the machine continues, the work continues, the death continues, forever, always, without end. This is what I have become. This is what the Inquisition makes. This is the cost. Remember it. Document it. And understand that somewhere, even now, another prognosticator is being recruited. Another calculator is being trained. Another human is being transformed into instrument of extinction. The cycle continues. The system perpetuates. The consumption is eternal, and the mathematics remain perfect, cold, absolute, final.